thrilling, low-scoring game today. I had a lot of fun watching this game, especially watching Dan Vladar. But overall thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a good Saturday game. The arena was packed. It was actually a sellout. I don't know if they mentioned that on the
Ooh,
broadcast, but
ooh.
it was indeed a sellout game. Arena was loud. Arena was rocking. Dan Vladar was fantastic. And I don't want to downplay how good Dan Bladar was because he was fantastic, especially in the second period. Made so many saves, gets that standing ovation from the crowd after a stoppage after he made like three really, really big saves in a row. So I don't want to downplay that. Vladar was the best player in this game on either team. But I do want to say that like this wasn't a game where, you know, the Flyers got obliterated and Vladar saved them. By the numbers, the Flyers finish with they lose a lot by shots on goal, but in terms of all situation shot attempts, Boston at 56, Flyers at 51, so a 5 shot attempt edge, not dramatic. In terms of expected goals, the Flyers finished with 2.96. The Bruins finished with 2.56. Flyers actually up in expected goals. And at 5-on-5, same deal. Flyers finished with 2.06 expected goals. At 5-on-5, Boston finishes with 1.64. So Flyers have the edge in expected goals with a 5-on-5 in all situations. The Flyers missed a lot of shots.
Yeah.
And that's why the shot on goal totals look so bad. And Vladar was fantastic, to be sure. But this to me was not a game of, well, Dan Vladar is the only reason why they won. The Flyers played a pretty good game against a team that since January 1st has been one of the best teams in hockey. So I don't want to dismiss Vladar's play. It was great, but I think the Flyers skaters also played well enough to win this game, and I think they deserve to win this game.
Yeah, listen, in a goalie duel, it's only going to take one or two, and the Flyers were able to do it. Like, execution is part of the game. I know Nathan McKinnon doesn't think so after the gold medal game, but like, oh, we played better. Then, like, if you played better, you'd execute. Execution's a big part of it, and the Flyers did today at a higher level than the Bruins. The guy I want to lead off with is someone we were talking about right before you joined us. It's Jamie Drysdale. Vladar, I'm sure, is going to come up in your last segment here, but Jamie Drysdale today, a goal and an assist. He's got 7 points in his last 11 games. And I was saying to Steve before you joined us, you were telling me during the practices as they're preparing to come back from the break, there was a lot of emphasis on him, making quicker decisions, walking the line, seeing if they can get that part of his game going. And I thought, he had game-winning goal, the tying goal leading into the Olympics, those couple of games where he looked really good. 7 points in 11 games. Can you see the offense start to emerge, or is this just a hot streak, do you think?
Well, I think time will tell. I mean, right now, it's probably just a hot streak because it hasn't been going on for that long. He had those 2 goals right before the break, has this goal here. So far, it's just a hot streak. Now, if we're still talking about it in early April, then it's not a hot streak anymore. And it's on him to prove that this isn't just a flash in the pan thing where it shows up for a few games and then disappears again for another 20. Could it be more than a hot streak? It could be because he does have the ability to do more offensively. And that's, I think, the exciting part about Drysdale. I never thought he was going to get as good as he's gotten defensively, but I also thought he was going to be better offensively. Now, the theoretically exciting part about his future development is, okay, he's better defensively than I ever thought he was going to get. Now, what if over the next year or two he can bring the offense in? Then suddenly you have a really exciting top 4 defenseman on your hands, a guy who can score you 40 points a year and also deliver strong defense, even given his physical limitations. Like, he's never going to be a bruiser. He's never going to be taller than 5'11". Like, he's not going to have a late 20s growth spurt. Those don't exist. But if he can be a good all-around defenseman who also can pop in, 10 goals and 40 points a year. I mean, maybe that's not a number 1, but maybe that's a 2. Maybe that's a Travis Sanheim-esque defenseman, and that's exciting. I talked to Drysdale after the game, talked to him about that work he was doing with, I think it was Yogi Tchaikovsky, one of the assistant coaches after practice. And he said, yeah, he sees, shooting in particular as sort of the next stage of his development. He's working on everything from repeating his mechanics to deceptiveness to lateral movement, walking the line and finding lanes. He's working on it all. And I asked Rick Tocchet after the game about it too. And, I think this is an ambitious ask, but he brought up that there was one offseason where Quinn Hughes worked exclusively on his shot, and he came back the next year, and suddenly he could shoot the puck 12 miles an hour faster than he could the year before. Now, do I think that Jamie Drysdale has a 12-mile-per-hour gain in him year over year? Probably not. He's probably not as good as Quinn Hughes, who's one of the two best defensemen in hockey.
Probably. Yeah.
But if he can put another
Yeah.
5 or 6 miles per hour on his shot going into next year, and he's getting better at the other things, I think he has the talent to be a yearly, like, 10, 11, 12 goal scorer from the back end. He needs to be more assertive. He needs to take charge with the puck more, and he needs to get the shot better. But he could plausibly do that because he has the offensive ability, certainly has the skating ability. Jamie Drysdale is one of the more exciting players on this team for me to watch because it's so obvious that he's developing. Like, there are other guys on this team where, they have a great month and then they drop off, and then they have a good 2 weeks and then they drop off. Jamie Drysdale, you can see, if you've been paying attention, basically since the moment they traded for him, if you've been paying attention, you can see that steady upward trajectory. It's there and it's still going up. I'm intrigued to see how high it's ultimately going to go. Like, where is it going to stop? Where is he going to stagnate? And then you're like, this is just who he is. I don't know, but I can't wait to find out.
The assertiveness was there today because that goal was fantastic. Just the way he walked up and fired it, awesome to see.
Yeah, take the ice that's given.
Yeah. Now, one of the big, controversies in pregame was seeing that Denver Barkey was out of the lineup and Nick Delorier was in. Obviously, Boston has some big guys in the lineup. Was this more of Barkey being banged up, or was this more of a thing to do with just the size of Boston's lineup?
I think it was probably a lot of things. Like, look, would I have kept Barkey in? Yeah, because I want to see Denver Barkey more than I want to see Nick Delorier. But the Bruins have established themselves as a bigger team. They have Tanner Jeannot. Barkey hasn't been popping, I would say, since they've come back from the Olympic break. I don't have an issue with sitting Denver Barkey for developmental purposes for a game. Now, I want him back in the lineup on Monday against Toronto.
Yeah.
But I see value in a guy sitting for a game, watching from up top, learning a little bit, and then taking what he learned and applying it to games. I just don't want it to be an Emil Andre situation where you blink and suddenly he's been out for a month. Now, granted, the Olympic break played a role in that, but still, he was out 5 games leading into the break. Then he was scratched for the first game coming out of the break. I don't want that. In a lot of ways, like, I feel like this wouldn't be as big of a controversy if they had a different player than Delorier to put in for him. Like, if let's say the Flyers have Tyson Forrester, he's still healthy. Okay, so Forrester's playing every game, and Barkey sits and Gurbankin comes in. I don't think people care that much. It's just like, yeah, Gurbankin has value.
Got to get him in now and then.
You got to get him in now and then. We want to see him get time. He's got to be developed. But when you pull Barkey and you put Delorier in, suddenly it's like, well, why Delorier? What's Delorier really providing? And I guess he was providing entertainment for the fans in the building. He has that heavyweight fight, which, I did not like him. And this is more just a personal thing. Like, I think that too often players try to start fights after clean hits. Like that McAvoy hit on Tippett, like that's a hard hit. That
wasn't even borderline.
It's a mean hit. It's nowhere close to dirty. That is just a physical, mean hockey hit. You don't have to go after him. And then he gets called for the penalty for it. Like, that's just my personal thing. Like, maybe that plays well in the room because he's sticking up for a teammate. I just think that should happen less in hockey in general, where, hey, clean hit, like, you let them go. That's hockey, man. But going back to my original point, like, would I have played Barkey in this game? Sure. I don't think it's a huge deal as long as he's back in on Monday, though. And it really wouldn't have been that big of a deal if you have someone other than Delorier to come in for him.
Because Barkey is here so far ahead of schedule, like just physical development, obviously he's still learning the NHL, learning his game, what he's going to be as a pro. If it's one game, I don't care. Like, if it's another, then I'm going to be like, all right, what are we doing here? He's one of our 9 best forwards. I think he's established that pretty quickly in terms of what we have available in the NHL. But if it's one, he hasn't looked great out of the break. Sure, fine. Speaking of the break, someone who clearly may have really needed it, Chuck, it is Sean Couturier who ends the drought today. 31 games. It almost got to 32, but he gets that empty netter to seal the game. And here's what's impressive about Coots' game to me, and I want you to agree or disagree. Leads all forwards in ice time, wins over 60% of his faceoff, obviously ends the drought. That's cool. Really nice play by Cates to get him the puck. But he started the whole thing by making the stick check along the boards on the other side. Do you think like he just really needed the break? This is the third game in 4 days, and like even less because it's an afternoon game. It seemed like he just listen, he's never gonna, oh man, you know who looked fast out there today? Because he didn't look fast at 24, but he just seems to really have needed the break.
Well, I thought he was going to really need the break because number one, he looked exhausted. Number two, I think he was in his own head leading into the break. He was just so frustrated that he wasn't producing. That said, I like, I'll be honest with you. The first half of this game, I did not like what I was seeing from Sean Couturier. I thought he looked quicker. I thought he maybe had a little bit more pep in his step, but he was making bad decisions with the puck, particularly in the offensive zone. And I was thinking like, oh, it's going to be another game. He's not going to score. I'm really glad he got the empty netter because hopefully it loosens him up a little bit. I talked to him a little bit after the game about that, and he was like, "Look, you know, I want to score." Obviously, he said, if anything, the play that made him get into a better frame of mind wasn't even the goal. It was the assist he had on the Mishkov overtime game winner 2 nights ago.
Yeah,
because it wasn't a goal, but it's a big play. I mean, they win that game, and look, that play is 80, 85, 90% Mishkov, but it doesn't happen if Couturier doesn't
he's got to get him the puck. Yeah.
He's got to get him the puck. And Couturier probably came out of that feeling like, yeah, I can still contribute. I can still be part of this team's offense. And then tonight, like, it's an empty net goal, so I'm not going to pat him too hard on the back for it. But I think the big thing for me is hopefully it gets him out of his own head a little bit. It loosens him up a bit. And maybe now he can look, I'm not expecting Sean Couturier to rattle off 10 goals over the final 23 games of the season, but maybe he scores 3 or 4 more and can go into the offseason feeling like he's not a total offensive black hole for the rest of his career.
I'm absolutely betting him to score in the next game because it's hockey, man. You get hot, you start feeling it. He's got points in a couple straight now. Now, I just he was getting in on offense. Now, what he did with the puck after, I mean, he's been doing that all year, so not shocking. But the fact that he kind of just looked like he had more jump today was encouraging to me. We were talking before you came on about the special teams. Penalty kill continues to look really good, 3 for 3 against the number 3 power play in the league. The power play, visually, it's better, would you say?
Yeah, well, they're creating chances. I mean, they had a couple that you were thinking like, man, that should have been a goal if Swayman wasn't on his game. Because I mean, Vladar was the better goalie in this game, but Swayman was real good too, especially in those first 2 periods. He was fantastic. So I'm not going to kill the power play, but again, like at some point you got to put the puck in the net. At some point you got to finish on these chances. They have been better over the last couple of months in terms of creating shot attempts, in terms of creating shots, in terms of creating scoring chances. Their numbers have been good. They're just not scoring. And the hope is that it's like, all right, well, eventually the floodgates are going to open up and they're going to pop in a bunch of power play goals. But it's hard to have confidence in that when we've been watching a bad power play for like the last 6 years.
6 years, yeah. Mm-hmm. No, agreed. That's like me and Steve were saying, yeah, I do think it looks better, but also like they never score, so who cares? All right. Right before 3 stars, just want to ask, the goalie interference seemed good to me. You like the call?
Well, I mean, it worked out very well for the Flyers. So, I mean, the Flyers certainly like the call. Yeah, I think it's one of those where based on the way they're calling it this year and last year, I think that's goalie interference. Now, do I think it was significant? It didn't strike me as, oh my God, there's no way Dan Vladar could have played his position. That was egregious. But based on the way they're calling goalie interference and the way they're calling the crease and things like that, yeah, I think it was goalie interference. I think it was the right call.